Hello, world. This is Kimberly and Connor Tracy over here at Big Red SEO, tuning in on this beautiful, beautiful Friday. Connor, how are you doing?
Better. So 45 minutes ago, we had no internet connection.
No internet, guys. No internet. So it's been quite interesting in our neck of woods because the electricity company is actually putting in new poles, right? It's so simple to call it a pole, but I'm like, is it really called a pole?
Yes.
Yes. So they're putting in new wires, new poles, and so forth. And I actually think that they might actually just be reinstalling the poles versus putting it underground, because I don't see a whole lot of underground construction right now. But that has left us in multiple weeks of, do we have power today? Yes, no, maybe so. I don't know. And it just so happens that a lot of times it lands on Fridays. But it works out because we were like, well, worst case scenario, we don't use the software, we don't use the laptops, we just use our phones, right?
Yep.
And what a beautiful way to be able to adapt, one, right? Because sometimes when people move your cheese, it might not always feel good. But two, to be able to have the flexibility to be able to do that in a different form of technology, right? And exciting news, we are on time. So it was actually 1 o'clock, which makes this guy super happy. Like, super duper happy.
So I didn't have to swap into manual mode. I was able just to use the regular Facebook Go Live, the countdown, and everything else. Now, of course, when we're all done and we go back and look at the video, we'll see whether it started the right way or not.
No, it's beautiful. It works great. And, you know, this guy over here, he does so much on the video side of things. And I know that we've been super busy. I don't know how else to say that. We've been fortunate in the fact we've been busy, right? By busy, I mean proactive, productive, right?
Yeah.
Like just in purpose and in passion and just doing what we do really, really well, right? And we had this intention when we started the Facebook Lives to do them every single week. And it just so happened that we were so busy, i.e. productive in projects, passionate projects, that we literally had to surrender last week and not do a Facebook Live, right? It could have taken 5 minutes and pop in and do it. But sometimes what happens is the stuff that happens behind the scenes that actually works to get us there, to actually click record, it's a lot more that happens. It's not just plug and play on your phone, right? We used to do it that way. However, we both also have the intention. We don't necessarily want to record a bunch of videos and it be kind of scripted. We really appreciate and love the live. Now, that doesn't mean down the road that we won't have some recorded videos coming, because we are noticing that there are some days that are easier to get live with you guys and have conversations than others, right? Definitely nothing against our fans. We love everybody that's here live and replay, right? But today, let's dive in. What we wanted... Yep, go ahead.
Before you do that, I don't think I reset the camera before we went live. So give me 2 seconds.
So Connor, you got to do a Snoopy dance as you do it. Yeah. You got to do the Snoopy dance. So this is technical where I bob my head, right? No.
Because nobody can see you anyway. There we go.
You turned the thing off. Okay, cool.
But Kim was saying, kudos with me that, the things that I set up and whatever else. But when we were setting up this video today, I'm like, did I do this part? Did I remember to do that part? And you were there to say, well, you didn't copy the stream key. I'm like, completely forgot about it.
I'm surprised I was actually able to point that part out, honestly. I got to be honest, because a lot of times I don't pay attention. That's no offense to this guy and all he does, but usually I'm off into a different world.
So what I'm saying is that this particular Facebook Live is a joint production.
Yay! It's always a joint production, guys. One way or another. One way or another. It's the Tracy team. It's the duo. Okay, so let's dive in. So today we actually wanted to bring some information to you guys. As you guys know, if you've been following us for a while, we're huge WordPress fans. We're followers of WordPress. We build in WordPress. We break WordPress and rebuild it again. We've got so much stuff that we're creatively doing right now that it's break it. Okay, now rebuild it. Break it, rebuild it. Break it, rebuild it.
We've been able to get WordPress to do things that it wasn't necessarily designed
It wasn't supposed to do. Yeah.
It does require some advanced coding in there, but certainly some parts of it, it's not really designed to do what we're doing. But we're making it work no matter what and getting good results out of it. At the end of the day, it has to function. It has to be good. It has to be fast. It has to be easy to use. If it wasn't, we would use a different tool.
Yeah.
So even though the custom code work that we're doing, and I'm doing quite a bit of it recently, we are using WordPress. We're an exclusive at this point.
Yep.
We only work in WordPress.
And it's interesting the conversation I have with people because they're like, come on, just one last time. Will you just like do mine in whatever platform it is? It's not that we don't have the skill for it, right, guys? So if we've had a conversation with you, it's not that we don't know how to design and other stuff. We do. We just get massive clarity in the doing one platform and here's where we're at, right? The older I get and the more years that come with having big red SEO, what I'm finding is it's all about what's your zone of genius and what really, really lights you up. And so today we actually want to cover several different things about WordPress that actually individually and together lights us up. It's a content management system if you're very beginner level of WordPress, right? It's one of the biggest platforms, or at least it's getting there.
It is.
It is, yeah.
34% of the web is powered by a WordPress website.
Yeah, and it's interesting because one of the reasons that I was really attracted to WordPress, well, actually, let me back up. So I went to school for designing and computer work, right? And I opted to not go into that industry, mainly because I was scared. I was a female. It was a male-dominant industry. I just wasn't ready, right? So I kind of went my own path and went sales and selling everything and anything. However, whenever it came back to us actually creating Big Red SEO, I slowly but surely got into website design. Now, this guy has been designing since the very beginning, right?
Back in the 90s.
And if you watched one of our previous videos, the biggest lesson that he taught me was whenever I first started this business, he said, go out and get 10 website designs and you can only sell them for $99. And what it did was it made me learn quick and fast like what our value was, what time was, right? Time. It also taught me about scope creep and expectations and what's really included, but every single design happened to be in a different platform and in a different theme, right? So it was kind of like this puzzle. It was kind of an initiation, is the easiest way to explain it, right?
It was definitely trial by fire.
It was like, and it was, of course, I went for my friends first. I went for friends and I went for family. And it's no offense to any of those individuals, but what happens is whenever it's friends and family, they expect more for even less. And I was already selling it for $99.
Right. And even though they expect more, you also want to give more.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
And it's kind of like that. I also got to play, right? I got to, like this would be really cool. And what about this? Have you thought about this? But what I actually did was whenever I did all of this, I actually organically fell in love with WordPress, right? I fell in love with the fact of, and this is the very first reason we use it, is it was so easy to use. It's not to say that you didn't need some designing and some programming experience. That's what I rely on this guy for, right? I could do a lot of drag and drop and he kind of shows me some short code, but I don't do any of the magic wizard stuff. That's what he does. But it's super easy to actually use and to edit and update even from an admin standpoint. And that's one of the reasons why we train our clients in how to use it, right?
Right.
And when we first started this business, and even several years back, we used to get a lot of flack from peers within our industry of who do you think you are training them? You're putting yourself out of a job. And it was like one of those, we had a really deep conversation. I was like, you know what? Power comes from knowledge. So I actually want my clients to know how to update it. They have the keys to the castle. That's one of the languages we use. But also it boosts their confidence in the fact they know how to update their own website. And guess what? They still call us to update, like have us do the updates for them.
I mean, it's just like an oil change on a car. I mean, I can be shown how to do it and I know how to change the oil in my car, but I've never changed the oil in my car in 25 years.
Right?
That's somebody else that can do it much faster and a lot cheaper than me spending 4 hours out there figuring out, well, what kind of bolt do I need?
Yeah.
So, but, you know, one thing with WordPress, and you're talking about, you know, the ease of updates and things like that, and being able to modify content, and it is easy from that end. And there's a lot of themes that are built. And there's places you can go to download a theme or a layout for your website. And those are great starting off points, I think, for a lot of people. But the moment you try to go outside the box, those themes kind of fall apart.
Yeah.
And that's really the world where we live, is outside that theme end of things, and more, I wouldn't necessarily say custom, but to an extent it is custom.
We wind up using the platform to the maximum capability that it can be used, right? And then we build the additional, what is the functionality we want, we need. And we are very grateful for those developers. This is one of the other reasons that we love WordPress. Those developers that go in and create plugins for functionality, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they add an extra superpower to the WordPress platform, right? And it's kind of interesting because there's a lot of people out there that are creating different plugins because they're like, man, this would be really nice if it could do this, or this could be really nice if it could do this. Simple stuff like social media share, right? Like the of how easy it is to share your content on your website to a social media platform and for it to sync. And a lot of people, they just think that it happens automatically, but no, there was actually a developer, there was a person that actually created that.
Mm-hmm.
And then hopefully, fingers crossed, keeps it updated so it's safe and it's secure. And
I think that brings you to one of the major points there on your list with regards to how WordPress works.
Yeah.
You know, it's all plugins.
Yeah, it's all plugins. And the thing is like, you can decide, do you want the whole ship and make it be big and powerful, or do you want it super simple, right? Like, or it can be in between. It could be like whatever you want it to be, can be there. A couple things that we want to clean up real quick is WordPress is actually a very safe and secure platform. The area where it gets a little murky in the security and the safety is if you go and you install plugins and you install all this functionality inside the WordPress platform, and then you don't update those plugins, or you install a plugin that maybe hasn't been supported for a year, 2 years, even 3 months, right? Mm-hmm. If somebody creates an actual plugin that you're going to utilize, you need to make sure that you look and figure out, when was the last update? How often are they updating? What's the reviews from other people? The other thing too is making a habit of, if you install a plugin and you decide, oh, I don't want that, you need to go and uninstall the plugin. Don't just deactivate it, because that just actually leaves it hybrid inside your website, right? It's one of those, like, a lot of people are like, oh, I like WordPress, but they get hacked all the time. Well, not necessarily, but in most cases, there's a situation where somebody's not updating the plugins consistently, and or they downloaded something that maybe they shouldn't have, or maybe they didn't research. Mm-hmm. So therefore, some nasty stuff happens, right?
Yeah, there's a plugin that just 2 weeks ago we were dealing with called File Manager.
Yeah.
And it's a plugin that allows you, or allows the developer, to modify files on the WordPress system, on the file system, without having to log into your hosting company to modify the files.
Yeah.
So the theory behind it is nice and simple. You can just modify the file directly inside of WordPress without having to go anywhere else.
Right.
The problem was, this plugin hasn't been updated in a long time.
A long time, guys.
Hackers basically wrote a script that would then take control of this, and they have full access to your file system because you installed the plugin that says, I have full access to the file system.
Yeah.
And as a result, that entire thing got exploited. It was 700,000 websites have that plugin installed, and they were all at risk unless an update was done.
Yeah.
So making regular updates is a priority. It's something that you should do, but also pay attention that just because a developer releases a new update, it doesn't mean you have to have it installed right away. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it could just be changing of text, or adding a comma, or adding a color. Sometimes it is a security issue. But when you start going through major revision updates, like from 4.1 to 4.2, you really need to pay attention to what changed.
Yep.
And when it goes from 4.1 to 5.0, that definitely you need a backup at that point.
Yeah, and we always talk about that. Like, before you do anything in a plugin, right, make a backup. But back to the high big picture of why we utilize WordPress, right? It is actually one of the safest and the most secure platforms out there. There's a lot of developers, there's a lot of users, there's a lot of collaboration. That's another thing. It's not just one platform owned by one company and then they hire all the developers and everything's in-house and you have to pay them a subscription, and then that's it. Yes, you can go the route of paying WordPress and doing all that other stuff. But one of the things that we love about WordPress and how we built our business is when somebody has us design something, they own that design. We actually don't own it. Right. So not only do they get the full keys to the castle, they get the full copyrights, they get everything. So they're not paying us a monthly subscription or a monthly fee in order to have a website design per se, right? And it's not to say that other platforms are wrong or inconsistent in that. It's just a different format. Like we personally don't lease our cars. Not that there's anything wrong with that. We want to own our cars, right? It's just a different mentality and different scenario, if that makes sense.
Yep.
One other area that's pretty big on WordPress is there's actually a vast amount of design options. So like Connor mentioned before, whether you go a theme or you go a template, that's another verbiage that they use. There's actually already pre-built things inside of themes and templates that kind of give you like a grid layout of maybe you don't want to start from scratch. Personally, we start from scratch quite a lot, but we've also been in the gig and we're doing it consistently all the time, right? But sometimes we'll have where our client's like, this is what I want. And so I'll go visually find a template and theme, and sometimes I'll find 3 of them and blend it into one design, like take certain elements and aspects. But the cool part about it is there's actually unlimited design options. So whether you want something slick and simple, or you want something super complicated, or stuff that flashes in and flashes out without using Flash, right? Again, this is WordPress. But maybe you want like certain call to action boxes to flip or move or grow, or there's just so much different stuff that you can have, right? And then you can actually start with a pre-built theme and template by a designer who just gives it away for free and or sells it at a very affordable fee.
There's a couple of places online that you can buy themes anywhere from $15 to $65, and you own the rights to use that theme. You technically own the theme. And then you'd have to run updates and stuff like that. And one of our old websites, our main agency website a few years ago, was one of those themes.
Yeah.
But it didn't do all the stuff we wanted it to do. And by the time we built the things that we wanted, we ripped it all apart.
We should do a coffee talk where we just talk about all the things that we've built in our own design, in our own thing. That would be a fun, casual conversation. Because, guys, we have designed so many different things for our own brand, from going super agency feel to a one-page website. Having somebody else build it versus us building it ourselves. Like at the very beginning, we actually had somebody else build our first website design.
Yep.
We were
so busy working with clients, we couldn't work on our own website. Yeah,
and it was like, well, I mean, here you go, like just go do this. And we gave direction, right? And they did a fantastic job at the time, knocked it out of the ballpark. But yeah, we might have to do that as a casual like chat conversation. One other reason why we love WordPress and we love working with WordPress is WordPress actually has very simple, easy to follow SEO. So the SEO plugins that you can utilize in that, which you just found a new one that you're kind of falling in love with, it's very straightforward and tells you exactly how to update and what information to put in. And the developers of these plugins actually give you some guidelines, right? To say, hey, go update this, or hey, you don't have this keyword in your title, or you don't have it in your content, or you need more content. You only have 200 words versus whatever else. Do you want to talk about that in the plugins?
Yeah, so there's mainly 4 big ones that I've worked with in the past. So all-in-one SEO, they've been around forever.
Yeah.
Yoast, which is kind of like
They've been around for a long time too.
Yeah, Yoast is probably the most popular one out there.
Yoast is like the Kool-Aid whenever we were young.
Yeah, Yoast.
It's like the thing.
They changed their name to WordPress SEO. They were that powerful with what they were doing, and were endorsed by WordPress. So, but all-in-one SEO, Yoast SEO, SEMRush has their own little SEO plugin. Simply SEO, I think it is. And then Rank Math, which is the new one that's come on the scene in the last year and a half. And I've been working with probably for the last year or so. It has a lot of different functionality, things that I want.
Right.
So it has like schema markup, which is what the search engines want to see.
Write that down if you don't have that in your WordPress.
Yeah, you definitely need that.
That's an important one. I feel like we need like fireworks that go off or something like that. Be like,
but schema markup, it's kind of one of those things that you should have, but Rank Math has it included for free.
Yeah.
Yoast says you got to pay $79 a year to get that functionality.
Yeah.
Yoast lets you do one keyword. Rank Math lets you do 5.
Yeah.
So every one
Not
of
that
them,
you necessarily need 5, right? Depending on the
every one of
content.
the plugins do something different. All-in-one SEO does some great stuff in there, but then they fall apart when it comes down to the local business schema.
Yeah.
It does okay on the organization schema, just not the local business one.
Yeah.
And then there's others that don't allow you to have multiple locations, and then the SEO falls apart there. So each one does something different. Each one is good for what it is they do. And just like anything else, when you start using it, you're going to have your own preference.
Yeah.
But having the SEO, that built-inness of SEO into WordPress, makes working with a website very easy compared to old school, where in regular HTML you had to add in all those codes manually.
Well, and the other thing too is a lot of other platforms, they just bury the SEO in, and people are like, I'm confused. Where do I edit this? Or they're actually going into the source code and editing right there, right? So yeah, that's a really, really important one. So one final area that we have of the reason why we use WordPress, guys, why we do it exclusively is the amount of capability that WordPress has since it's open source code. So you want to talk about that, like how different systems can come together with a WordPress platform?
Sure.
Because it's one of the things, like we've gone through, guys, and as I said before, we've gone through like site builders that are like third party, or big companies that are site builders, and then they restrict the code. They lock certain things out where you can't actually edit and manipulate. But more importantly, a lot of businesses already have certain platforms of softwares that they use. And sometimes they need the website to sync in with all that. Right. So you want to talk about that?
So, well, it kind of goes along with the plugins from earlier.
Yep.
It's that expandability of what WordPress can do and how customized you want it to be.
Right.
So, for example, inside of WordPress, if you need a store, there are hundreds of different types of stores. Tomato Cart, WooCommerce, Ecwid, I can't think of any others.
I don't know any other one. I just build them.
But all of these different ones are out there. I mean, there's just hundreds, but these are the ones that we've worked with.
I personally love WooCommerce. That's my favorite.
WooCommerce I like because I can get into the code. It's the same structure as what WordPress structure is.
And they make some pretty cool stuff look cool on a shopping experience.
But taking that and then let's say inside of your shopping cart, you want it to sync up with your QuickBooks.
Yeah.
There's a plugin that ties into WooCommerce that syncs up with your QuickBooks, and now everything works there. Different credit card systems. If you need one from...
Say that you want that you're shipping. Like Connor said in our last episode, he gave a couple different shipping options, or even tax. Like maybe you don't want to have to figure out your tax. You want the system to do it themselves. Maybe you actually have a customized platform for quoting that you want to actually sync in with your website, right? The sky's the limit with the capability, right?
And then
compatibility.
And then you've got the other side of things. There is no plugin for an item that I was wanting to do, which was basically...
That's whenever his wheels start going. He's like, how much time would it take for me to create this?
I needed a section of code that took the product price and only charged a percentage, and then the other 95% was due later.
Yeah.
And there is no plugin out there. It's not something that people would do. But with a little bit of code...
But somebody did. They hired us to do it.
With a little bit of code, you can put it inside of the functions file, or I created my own plugin to make that part happen.
Right.
Now, that plugin is ours. We use it internally. We have not made that public domain just because of the updates and stuff like that. So extending it and customizing things to really do anything you want can be done. I don't want the $sign to the left of the number. I want it to the right of the number. You just modify the code. You work with PHP to make all that happen.
Right.
So, so in terms of customizability and expandability, that's one of the things I really like about it. Now, that's not to say that Joomla and I can't remember the other systems.
It's cool. Magento. We don't have to remember them, right? Like, and that's the beautiful thing about it, is that since we are exclusively WordPress, we don't have to know all the other platforms.
Right. But they do have functionality like that.
Yeah.
It's just in a different language. It's in a different format.
It's not to say one doesn't have it. This is the reason why we use WordPress, right? So huge shout out to Brandon. Thanks so much for tuning in, especially live. hopefully life's going beautiful and great for you. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're at, whether it's a one-page website or multiple websites. That's a reason why we use WordPress, right, guys? Some like nuts and bolts of it, technical, non-technical. But I think at the end of the day, you just have to decide, are you wanting to manage it yourself? Are you wanting somebody to kind of like teach you how to manage it down the way? Or do you just want to set it and forget it and just be done? That's not necessarily how we represent or want business to happen. However, we also understand that sometimes in a business, you just need something up and you just need it quick and dirty and it's done, right?
And there's some websites that are like that. Like if you're selling a book, for example, you've got 3-5 pages on there for your information about the book. But generally, you don't need to update that every couple of months or even every year.
Yeah.
It's done. It's off and running. Now, would we recommend doing that as an SEO company?
No.
That's
it. I'm like, no, I can't believe he said that. How could he say that? That's not what we do. But it's truth, right? It's for somebody that is how it rolls, and that's the way it is.
Right.
So that's what we got for you guys today. Hopefully it adds a value. If you have any questions, put them in the comment. Let us know. But in the meantime,
there's our social media stuff.
There's our social media stuff. He's doing all the other stuff.
He's like,
all the other fun stuff. I see us over there. But in the meantime, hope you guys have a beautiful weekend. And until next time, we'll chat soon.
All right, guys. Have a great day now. Thank you.